What is up, my friends? Manny here, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we're going to take a closer look at overhangs and how to actually climb them. And I want to say right away that there is not really one key technique which is going to solve all overhanging problems. Rather, there is a conglomerate of different techniques and physical capabilities, whereas being aware about them, respectively simply having them, is going to make success in steep terrain more likely. So in principle, a pretty basic law in climbing also applies to the overhang. Mostly you want to have your center of gravity as close to the wall as possible, in order to put as much weight as possible onto your feet, relieving your hands. As I already mentioned in the body positioning technique episode, there are very few exceptions of this rule. One of these is smearing, meaning stepping on friction with your feet, as it often occurs when climbing slabs, for example. Well, smearing is quite a non-issue in a real overhang. The more overhanging it gets, the more you will need some kind of real outstanding structure to step on, a foothold in the classical sense, or you will simply slip off. Therefore, any technique which helps you keeping your center of gravity close to the wall will help you to climb overhangs more easily. And the first thing that comes to my mind in this context is the backstep. I've talked about this previously. The backstep makes it easier to literally pull the body close to the wall because it transfers body strength related forces from the lower back and ass, which are more under stress in the frontal position, to bigger, stronger muscle groups like lateral abs, as you can see in this comparison. Keeping your body tight this way will create greater forces at your toe tips, allowing you in turn to pull more actively on footholds as well. All in all, it will result in a body very close to the wall, which is advantageous in the majority of the cases. And of course, this does not mean that the backstep is the only way to achieve that. Sometimes a backstep is simply not possible. As I've explained in the backstep technique episode, you need certain hold and foothold properties and constellations for this. Sometimes you will have to go for a frontal body position, like for example when a foothold is situated super high and more to the side of your actual climbing line. And this will of course force you to make use of other body strength departments. Another technique which comes in handy quite often in overhanging problems are hooks. And I'm talking about anything hook related here, heel hooks, toe hooks, and also pinching footholds in between your feet in all its variations. The reason for this is yet again that hooks allow you to pull your body weight closer to the wall quite effectively, at least if the affected foothold is shaped appropriately, and I talk about this in more detail in my hooks technique episode. Due to our biomechanic design, we are simply stronger on our heel and instep compared to our toe tips, which makes pulling our body weight closer to the wall easier and less body strength demanding when we use a hook. Another thing people rarely talk about is the fact that we often not only have to climb through an overhang, but we also have to climb out of an overhang over some kind of edge or belly or stuff like that. And quite often these situations represent actually the most difficult part, the crux of the problem. The reason for this is that as soon as we pull ourselves up around the corner, we lose the connection to the footholds in the actual overhang below, leaving us hanging almost solely on our fingers. In these situations, hooks and a good bunch of flexibility can be a real lifesaver. Simply throw your leg up and place a nice heel hook in order to push yourself up. Of course, yet again, this is not always possible, but being aware of all your options already goes a long way in climbing. Alright, I would say that's it from the technique point of view. Of course, there is also more stuff like knee bars or bat hang situations, for example, which can enable even no hands rests in the overhang. It's of course good to know about them, but at the end of the day, they can be applied only rarely. Now I want to talk about some physical capabilities you're going to need if you want to be successful in the overhang. As I pointed out earlier, you really want to get that center of gravity close to the wall, and no matter what technique you're going to use to achieve that, if you're climbing in the overhang, you will always need body strength to do that. Let's take a quick look at this comparison. When beginners attack the overhang, you will often see that ass hanging out, and this is a classical sign of weakness in the body strength and core department. The consequence of this is that the climber loses pressure on his toes because his ass is literally pulling him away from the wall. which not only makes him more likely to slip off, but also puts greater load on his hands and fingers. On the other hand, the climber with body strength keeps his body straight, which basically means resisting the weight force that attaches to his center of gravity, allowing him to put a greater proportion of his body weight onto his toe tips, making his foot-wall connection more solid and relieving weight from his hands and fingers. So body strength and core definitely a necessity if you want to rule in overhanging terrain, no matter how technically perfect you might climb. And I've got quite a few suggestions on how to train that stuff in previous videos. Other, rather physical capabilities which won't hurt your performance in overhangs are upper body strength and of course finger strength in general. And what do I mean with upper body strength? Well, for example, lock-off power or explosive power for dynos and stuff. The reason for this, and this is actually quite obvious, is that no matter how technically clean you climb and no matter what your core and body strength looks like, you will always have to deal with greater forces in fingers and hands and arms in overhanging situations compared to a more flat situation, as can be seen in this comparison. On a vertical wall, the climber might be so lucky that even zero weight reaches his fingers because his footholds are so ideally placed and can take up to 100% of his body weight. No matter how ideally the footholds of an overhang might be placed, you will always end up with some force in your fingers, and if you ignore that, well, then you will have to face the ground. This implies that moving upwards, actually climbing, demands much more finger and upper body strength in overhanging terrain compared to vertical or even slabby terrain, where if you are lucky, arms do not even have to be used at all, if you have good balance. Yet again, you will find plenty of suggestions on how to train that stuff in previous videos. So to conclude, from a technical point of view, you should definitely be aware of possibilities for backsteps and hooks, if you want to have an easy time sucking your body weight close to the wall in overhanging problems. Also, knee bars can help a lot if you climb in the right area, especially when there are a lot of tufas. Other than that, you should be aware that you will usually need more finger and upper body and core strength in overhangs due to the simple fact that your feet are not able to take off as much weight as on vertical climbs. It is no coincidence that the majority of very hard and spectacular climbs do in some way involve the overhang. You simply need more physical capabilities to get them done. And that's already it for this video, my friends. I hope you've got something from it. If you did, please drop some likes and comments as usual, it helps a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already for future awesome technique episodes, and until then, keep up the training, get it done, and I'll see you next time. Bye!